In that time, the fighting strength of the Grande Armée had been reduced from around 124,000 men to 20,000.
Oh my, what the heck? They're virtually annihilated. Alright, Napoleon retreats from Moscow. Okay, we're at the big part. The big part, his downfall. His true downfall.
Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach. Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history.
In history. Napoleon in Russia, the retreat. Ooh.
15th of September, 1812. 83 days after invading Russia, a week after his costly victory at Borodino, Napoleon entered Moscow. He expected to be greeted by dignitaries, formally offering the city's surrender. Instead, he discovered that 90% of Moscow's inhabitants had fled.
Oh!
A fire had started the previous night and was blamed on drunken soldiers. But over the next 48 hours, fires continued to break out across Moscow until most of the city was ablaze.
Wait a minute. How was this even possible? Like, how was this even, like, remotely possible? 90% of the population is gone, and fires are breaking out left, right, and center. Who is doing this? Who was actually doing it? Like, I heard that it was like they let the prisoners free or something. The prisoners were like wreaking havoc or something. But I always like wondered, how were these fires like to this extent even possible?
Count Fyodor Rostopchin, the city's governor, had ordered that Moscow be destroyed rather than allowed to fall into enemy hands. And now,
wait, was all of Moscow actually destroyed?
Fires were being started deliberately by Russian criminals freed from jail and acting on police orders. French soldiers rounded up and shot any they could catch. But the inferno was impossible to contain.
Oh, yeah. Now my question is, how in the world did Moscow even recover from that? Like, how bad was the fire? Like, how much percentage of Moscow even burnt down from this fire? And not only that, but did the Kremlin get on fire too? But if all of Moscow was supposed to be like burned, like did the Kremlin get any bit of that? So I'm actually curious. Like, I really want to know.
In 4 days, 2/3 of Moscow was destroyed.
Oh my gosh! Wait, is that the Kremlin? The Kremlin caused it? What? Oh my gosh! That really meant that freaking like all of Moscow has to be destroyed.
As finally under control, Napoleon's soldiers turned their attention to systematically looting the ruined city. While from his new quarters in the Kremlin, Napoleon sent a letter to Emperor Alexander in St. Petersburg, inviting him to make peace and end the war. He received no reply.
Oh my gosh.
Napoleon waited, confident that Alexander would eventually negotiate. But as the days...
Yeah, but that's the problem. The Russian army isn't defeated. Like, just because you took a city doesn't mean anything, bro. Like the Russian army, bro. Like, that's the problem with Russia. Russia is too big. Like, Russia could sometimes, in certain aspects, they could lose a large chunk of their territory and they could still keep going, right? And they could, like, recover too.
Fast, he grew increasingly uneasy. Cossack raids were disrupting his vital communications with Paris, as well as the arrival of supplies. While the steady attrition of French forces and Russian reinforcements meant Napoleon was outnumbered for the first time in the campaign. Rumours also reached him that his reluctant allies, Prussia and Austria, were in secret talks with his enemies.
Of course.
Napoleon
I'm not even surprised. I mean, oh my god, Austria has been trying to just get a one-up on Napoleon for the longest time.
reached him that his reluctant allies, Prussia and Austria, were in secret talks with his enemies. Napoleon had proposed that the army winter in Moscow, but that now looked too dangerous. Reluctantly, he accepted that the army would have to move back to Smolensk to find safe winter quarters. Napoleon knew how severe Russian winters could be, but continued to put off his departure, reassured by fine October weather, and hoping that at the last minute there might be a message from Alexander offering peace. It never came.
Bro, it never came. Bro, you should have used that October weather to pull back Napoleon. Napoleon rationalizing. This is what you call rationalizing, man. Rationalizing. When you try to take a bad situation and you try to make good of it, like, that's rationalizing. That's not really thinking, that's just rationalizing. You never really want to rationalize. That's really bad. You always want to try to avoid that. Napoleon. Like, I'm pretty sure if Napoleon wouldn't rationalize this, he probably would have been in a much better spot, man.
On the 13th of October, the first light snow fell. 5 days later, Kutuzov launched a surprise attack on Murat's advance guard at Vinkova and defeated it.
Whoa!
Napoleon, stung into action, gave the order for the army to leave Moscow the next day.
Yeah, bad sign, bad sign. Now is the moment my campaign begins. Tsar Alexander is cooking. Okay.
100,000 men of the Grande Armée left Moscow in a column 10 miles long, with an estimated 40,000 carriages and carts. There were women and children too, army wives and the vivandières, the women who cooked for the soldiers, as well as some civilians.
Civilians? Why would civilians go with Napoleon? What? Right, Russian civilians? Why would civilians go with Napoleon? Is he not the enemy? What? My brain is not braining.
Every wagon and pack was stuffed with as much food and loot as possible.
Oh, I bet.
As he set off, Sergeant Bourgogne of the Imperial Guard made an inventory of his pack. It contained several pounds of sugar, some rice, some biscuit, half a bottle of liqueur, a woman's Chinese silk dress embroidered in gold and silver, several gold and silver ornaments, amongst them a piece of the cross of Ivan the Great. Besides these, I had my uniform, a woman's large riding cloak, 2 silver pictures in relief, 12 inches long and 8 high, all in the finest workmanship. Also several lockets and a Russian prince's spittoon set with precious stones.
Jeez.
I wore over my shirt a yellow silk waistcoat, which I had made myself out of a woman's skirt. Over that, a large cape lined with ermine and a large pouch hung at my side by a silver cord. This was full of various things, amongst them a crucifix in gold and silver and a little Chinese porcelain vase. Then there were my firearms, powder flask, and 60 cartridges in the box.
Oh my gosh, how much loot can a person carry, dude? And the fact that he's just casually just listing them off. Dude, that's the funniest thing that I've realized about these reactions that I've been doing. Like, these people will like literally do the most heinous things. And not only this, but some people, I think this is like my last reaction, or like 2 reactions ago that I did on my Napoleon series. Someone pointed out how like a lot of these people would like do the most heinous things, and they would just be boasting about it and be so proud about it. Like, it's so sad, but it's just so hilarious because they just don't feel any like empathy. Like, it's just so sad to the point where it's just hilarious. You know what I mean? Like, it's just unreal.
This heavily encumbered army did not yet realize it was in a race against time. The Russians were beginning to move against the flanks of Napoleon's 550-mile deep salient. That very day, Wittgenstein's army was driving back Marshal Saint-Cyr's outnumbered force at Polotsk and drawing Victor's 9th Corps west to support them.
Oh gosh, this is not...
In the south, Admiral Chichagov's advance had Schwarzenberg's Austrian Corps falling back to cover Warsaw.
Oh no!
The corridor was closing.
Yikes!
And then there was...
I mean, come on, Napoleon. I don't like this. I never really liked the fact that Napoleon even like had this huge salient right here, because like I know this is different. I know this was different back then, like the way how like warfare and front lines work. But Napoleon, if you're gonna at least invade, you should have at least sent troops towards like Kiev, right? Or Kiev, I don't know. Kiev, I really don't care. But you should have sent troops towards Kiev because this flank here, it's not too bad. But the problem is, this flank is really bad. Mess this up and the whole thing comes tumbling down, right? Like if you push this up north, all of this is basically like done and over with.
Was the weather. Though Napoleon was confident his army could reach winter quarters in Smolensk in 20 days, well before the more extreme temperatures were due to hit. Napoleon planned to withdraw via Kaluga, through unspoilt country where the army could forage for supplies. But Kutuzov sent General Dokhturov's 6th Corps to block the road at Maloyaroslavets. In fierce fighting, Italian troops of Eugene's 4th Corps drove the Russians out of the town.
Okay, Italian is showing
one victory, reminiscent of the fighting at Borodino.
And you know what's even worse is that it gets even worse.
Kutuzov now stood between Napoleon and Kaluga. Napoleon now took the unusual step of conferring with his marshals. And after discussing various options, he decided that rather than seek another major battle, they would retreat the way they'd come, along the Smolensk road. Napoleon had hoped to avoid this route, as it meant marching back through country already stripped bare of supplies.
Ooh, this is...
The day after the fighting at Maloyaroslavets, Napoleon was nearly captured by a group of Cossacks, and saved only by General Rapp's charge at the head of his escort.
How does that happen? What the heck? Oh my gosh, Napoleon almost caught lacking again? Oh my... Dude. Jeez, dude, this is a perilous situation. There's no other, like, English language word that I can think of to describe this situation. This is literally, like, perilous. Not even dire, bro. Dire is not, like, a good word to describe it. This is literally perilous.
After this close shave, Napoleon had a phial of poison made up, which he carried around his neck in case of capture.
Oh. Okay. Alright. Those who were too weak to carry their weapons or knapsacks threw them away. All looked like a crowd of gypsies. What's wrong with gypsies? I never understood the hate.
Napoleon's army set off on its new course, shadowed at a respectful distance by Kutuzov's army to the south. They passed the old battlefield of Borodino, a grisly, unnerving sight, where crows pecked at half-buried corpses.
Oh, wait. Imagine watching that. Oh, the corpses are still there. Oh no, dude. Oh, I can imagine. Holy hell, man. What the heck, bro? Oh.
Relentless marching quickly began to tire out men and horses.
Freaking hell, dude. Imagine you're in a perilous situation, right? and you're walking through the old battlefield. And that will make you that will make me feel worse, realizing that we're in a very tight situation, and we're walking through the old battlefield, and we see that. That's like insult to injury, my man.
A few days later, the temperature fell below freezing. The army's overworked, starving horses died en masse.
Hey, use it for
Discipline
food.
began to break down, as some drivers simply dumped the sick and wounded by the roadside.
What? What the heck, fam?
Try to ensure their own survival.
Gosh.
As the French column became increasingly strung out, General Miloradovich, commanding Kutuzov's advance guard, fell on Davout's rear guard outside Vyazma. For a few hours, Davout's first corps was cut off, until Eugene and Ney came to his rescue. The battle ended with street fighting in Vyazma, as the French hastily evacuated the burning town.
That came in clutch, bro.
For the soldiers of the Grande Armée, so unaccustomed to retreats and routes, Vyazma was an alarming, demoralizing blow.
Really bad. Oh, I bet, bro. Oh, this is just a surface, too. Oh, God. And I drink water.
On the 4th of November, it began to snow heavily. The next night, temperatures plummeted to minus 20 degrees centigrade.
Oh my gosh.
Few
my
men
gosh.
or women had proper winter clothing or access to shelter. Many froze to death overnight.
Oh my gosh, bro. What the heck? Oh my gosh. Oh my god. I don't even know what to say. Holy. And this is even worse because I'm so used to tropical temperature, bro. Like I said this in my previous reactions before. I think it was my World War One reaction, Epic Issue TV. Go check it out if you haven't checked it out. But I said that because the fact that I'm from the Caribbean, like my body's not is quite literally not made for this type of weather. Even right now, like the AC is turned on in the room that I'm in, and I have like goosebumps on my body, and that's like barely room temperature, right? It's barely below room temperature, and my hair is already like up. You can't see it, but it is, and I feel chilly. Like I'm low key like shivering. You know what I mean? So this, oh my gosh, dude, I probably would last like an hour. Like an hour. If I was here, I'd be like 1 hour and boom, I'm dead. Not even overnight.
The next morning, wagons and guns were abandoned. Many soldiers sought to save themselves, ignoring officers, stealing horses and food, and leaving the column to scour the countryside for supplies. Many of these foragers were found by the Cossacks. Some cut down or lanced, others robbed of every possession and left to freeze. In a few cases, they were handed over to peasants, eager for retribution against the foreign invaders who had plundered all they owned.
Oh nah, bro. Just nah. Just kill me on the spot. Just kill me on the spot, bro.
The army struggled on towards Smolensk through blizzards. Napoleon ordered Eugene's 4th Corps to strike out for Vitebsk, where there were large French supply depots. But Vitebsk had already fallen to the Russians.
No!
4th Corps was too weak to fight its way through, and rejoined the army, minus its artillery and most of its baggage.
Oh no!
A colonel who saw 4th Corps at this stage described men without shoes, almost without clothes, exhausted and famished, sitting on their packs, sleeping on their knees, and only rousing themselves out of this stupor to grill slices of horse meat or melt bits of ice.
That's
Just
not even
3 weeks.
That's not even an army. Like That's not even an army. I wouldn't even call that an army, bro. Like, what do you call this? I don't even know.
After leaving Moscow, a third of the army was dead or captured. About half the rest formed a growing army of stragglers, men without units, prepared to fight only to survive.
Most of these people freaking... Oh my god. Most of these people died or were captured, which is basically like a death sentence, let's be real.
Napoleon reached Smolensk on the 9th of November. The first troops into town ransacked the supply depots, leaving nothing for those who followed, including Ney's rearguard, which arrived 6 days later. Napoleon had hoped to make Smolensk his winter base, but the state of the army and lack of supplies meant the retreat had to continue.
Oh man, oh.
The 5 days he spent there gave Kutuzov time to circle ahead and prepare an ambush. When the French retreat resumed, he struck 30 miles west of Smolensk at Krasny. In 3 days of desperate fighting through knee-deep snow, Napoleon used his Imperial Guard to hold open the road, as Eugène and Davout's corps fought their way through the ambush with heavy losses. 2 regiments of the Young Guard were ordered to make a sacrificial counterattack to keep the Russians at bay, and were virtually annihilated.
Oh wow.
Kutuzov.
I'm surprised that they're even capable of fighting at this point. It blows my mind. Like, I thought that one more battle and this army will literally disintegrate at this point. I'm just shocked, bro. Like,
held back many of his troops and was blamed for not trying to destroy Napoleon's army when he had the chance. It's possible he was concerned at the number of raw conscripts in his own army, also suffering terribly in the freezing conditions.
I was literally just about to ask. I was thinking about this in my head, and I was like, should I ask this question? I'm like, are the Russians not suffering from these conditions as well? Like, there's no way the Russians are not suffering from these conditions. But since, you know, he brought that up, I'm gonna ask that question. Are the Russians not suffering from these conditions too? Freaking hell, man.
It's possible he was concerned at the number of raw conscripts in his own army, also suffering terribly in the freezing conditions.
The Cossacks and the Russians in the world shall not prevent me from rejoining the army. That's right, Marshal Ney. Hello, Marshal Ney.
Every French corps broke through at Krasny. Marshal Ney and his 6,000-strong rearguard arrived on the 18th of November to find the road blocked by 60,000 Russian troops.
What the? 6,000 versus 60,000? How is he gonna pull this?
Sign of the promised support from Davout's First Corps.
How is he gonna pull this off?
Ney's men hurled themselves against the Russian lines with desperate courage, but were mown down. Rejecting several invitations to surrender, Ney led the survivors in a daring night crossing of the Dnieper River, then across 45 miles of open country under constant attack from Platov's Cossacks to reach Orsha.
No, this is the craziest thing that I have seen throughout this whole Napoleonic Wars series. Holy crap. That is insane!
By the time Ney rejoined the army, his rearguard was down to just 800 fighting men.
Oh my gosh, 800 out of 6, what the heck?
Leading a column of several thousand stragglers. The army regarded his escape as a miracle, and when Napoleon heard of it, he immediately dubbed Marshal Ney the bravest of the brave.
Oh, Marshal Ney, Marshal Ney, Marshal Ney. I gotta put some respect more on Marshal Ney. I've been low-key sleeping on Marshal Ney, but I gotta put some respect more on Marshal Ney. This is beginning to be very serious. No, this is very serious. This is very serious already.
Napoleon had escaped one trap, but now 3 Russian armies were closing in from different directions and outnumbered him nearly 3 to 1.
Oh God.
From the east, Kutuzov's main army with 65,000 men. From the north, Wittgenstein with 30,000, steadily driving back Marshal Victor's 9th Corps. And from the south, Admiral Chichagov's army of Moldavia with 34,000, having detached
Hello? Whoa. Where are Napoleon's reserves? Where are his allies? Are they not gonna try and help him? Does his allies not know of the situation that is happening? What is going on there? Well, I see them. Can they not help him?
General Osten-Sacken with 30,000 to prevent Schwarzenberg's Austrians and Reynier's Saxon Corps marching to Napoleon's aid.
Whoa.
Napoleon was heading
Plus 500.
for Minsk, a major French supply base with vast stores of the food, clothing, shoes and ammunition that his army so desperately needed. But on the 21st of November, disastrous news arrived. Minsk had fallen to Chichagov.
Oh my
He
God.
then marched on Borisov, driven out the Polish garrison, and captured its bridge over the Berezina River.
Lord. God forgive me for saying your name in vain, but this is awful. This is so awful to watch. This is literally so awful to watch.
By rights, the Berezina ought to have frozen solid by now, so Napoleon could have crossed anywhere. But a sudden thaw had turned the river into a torrent of ice and freezing water.
How unlucky can someone? No. This is my level of unlucky, bro. Nah, bro. It's like somebody was just like watching down from like heaven or something. It was just like, okay, we're gonna make this the worst it can be for Napoleon. So every single thing that can happen will happen. It's not like Murphy's Law. Like anything bad that can happen will eventually happen, right? Holy crap. Napoleon's suffering from Murphy's Law. We're sad.
Napoleon was at least joined by the hard-fighting Marshal Oudinot and his 2nd Corps, which hadn't suffered as badly as the main column on its retreat from Polotsk. Oudinot launched an immediate counterattack on Borisov and retook the town, but couldn't stop the Russians burning the bridge. With no other bridge for miles in either direction, it seemed Napoleon's exhausted army was finally doomed. But there was one sliver of hope. Polish cavalry had found a ford across the river near the village of Studienka. Napoleon issued a flurry of orders. 2nd Corps was to fake preparations for a river crossing south of Borisov. Victor's 9th Corps,
They can even still like coordinate. It is shocking to me at this point.
arriving from the north, was to form a rear guard east of Studienka to hold the Russians at bay, while engineers worked as quickly as possible to build pontoon bridges across the river and win Napoleon's army a fighting chance of escape.
Well, the situation is unparalleled. If Napoleon extracts himself today, he must have the devil in him. Well, we shall
On
see.
the afternoon of the 25th of November, General Eblé's Dutch engineers began building 2 300-foot pontoon bridges across the Berezina River. They worked day and night, sometimes chest deep in freezing water, and completed both bridges in less than 24 hours. Few of the engineers survived the ordeal.
Oh, freaking out. Freaking out. I bet, dude. I honestly bet. Like I said before, I'm even shocked that they can even do all of this, man.
Chichagov had been totally fooled by the diversion south of Borisov. and was moving his troops south to face it, allowing Napoleon's army to begin crossing its rickety bridges virtually unopposed. Oudinot's Second Corps led the way to secure a bridgehead, followed the next day by the remnants of the main army. Priority was given to formed troops, still able to fight. For the time being, the army's vast crowd of stragglers remained on the far bank. By the time Chichagov realized his mistake and began moving north, Napoleon had troops in place to defend the crossing.
What are these guys? What? Are these guys gonna be sacrificed? Oh!
On the east bank, General Partonneux's 12th Division, the only 4,000 relatively fresh troops from Victor's 9th Corps, formed the rearguard. As Platov's Cossacks approached from the east, the vanguard of Kutuzov's main army, Partonneux tried to rejoin 9th Corps.
Bad.
But caught in a swirling blizzard, with visibility down to 50 meters, he marched straight into Wittgenstein's army.
Oh, come on! Oh my, this is like the Battle of Eylau when freaking, what marshal was it? I forgot the marshal's name, but he like snow, like he couldn't see and he marched straight into the enemy fire. He got like, I'm surprised he didn't get killed, but his whole, like, he was decimated, bro. What was that marshal's name? I forgot. I freaking forgot.
His entire division was killed or captured. The next,
and these were fresh troops. Oh my gosh, this is so hard to watch, man.
morning, Chichagov and Wittgenstein launched coordinated attacks on both sides of the river. There was desperate fighting on the west bank, where Marshal Oudinot was, yet again, seriously wounded, but his Swiss infantry held the line, until General Doumerc's cuirassiers, the army's last heavy cavalry, charged and routed the Russians. At great cost, Polish and German troops of Victor's rearguard held off the Russians until dark, then pulled back across the bridges. For 2 nights, officers had been trying to get the vast camp of stragglers to cross the bridges when they weren't being used. But with temperatures reaching -30 centigrade, they'd preferred to stay put, huddled around their fires. At dawn on the 29th, with the army leaving and the Russians approaching, thousands of stragglers surged in panic towards the bridges. Dozens were crushed underfoot. Others fell or were pushed into the water, or tried to swim.
Oh my gosh.
Death.
Dude, this is the saddest. This is the worst one. I don't think, like, out of the whole Napoleonic Wars, like, Eylau is probably second to this, and then after Eylau, probably Borodino. But this is the worst one. This is so bloody awful. My God, bless those people who died.
When French engineers burned the bridges at 9 a.m., thousands were cut off and left to the mercy of the advancing Cossacks.
Oh my God,
Some
bro.
became prisoners. Others were simply put out of their misery.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Since the retreat began 43 days earlier, the Grande Armée had marched nearly 500 miles, under constant attack, starved, exhausted, and for the last 23 days, in lethal sub-zero temperatures, without proper clothing or shelter. In that time, the fighting strength of the Grande Armée had been reduced from around 124,000 men to 20,000.
Oh my, what the heck? They're virtually annihilated. Bloody hell. Virtually, the Grand Army virtually annihilated. Oh my gosh. It's virtually annihilated.
Many stragglers still following the army. As the retreat continued to Vilna, the weather turned even worse.
Week off,
Temperatures falling to minus 37 degrees centigrade. The Russian armies at least now held back, leaving the winter, Cossacks and Russian peasants to finish off the invaders. On the 5th of December, Napoleon left the army, travelling incognito across Europe at breakneck speed, and reaching Paris in just 13 days.
Ooh, that's impressive. How in the world did he do that? In 13 days? Holy.
Naturally, English satirists capitalized on Napoleon seeming to abandon his defeated army. And many soldiers did regard it as an act of betrayal. But his generals supported his decision to leave. There'd already been one attempted coup against Napoleon in Paris, and there was much work to be done to rebuild the army and reassure France's allies. On the 9th of December, 51 days after the retreat began, around 20,000 ragged survivors of the Grande Armée began crossing the Niemen River back into friendly Polish territory.
That's no longer Grand, my man.
According to legend,
that's no longer Grand. That's no longer a Grand Army, bro.
Marshal Ney was the last man across.
Bro, Marshal Ney is the GOAT.
Napoleon's invasion of Russia had proved to be one of the greatest military disasters in history. He had made fatal miscalculations about geography, logistics, and above all, Russia's political and strategic response to his invasion.
He got too cocky. I was discussing this in my previous Napoleon reaction. He underestimated Russia. Not only did he underestimate Russia, he clearly rationalized too much. All right, like I said earlier in this video, he rationalized. He could have avoided a lot of mistakes that happened if he honestly did not underestimate Russia and didn't rationalize, and he overestimated his capabilities. He bit more than he could chew, quite literally. I do believe that Napoleon could have defeated Russia had he not like I said, a bit more than he could chew. Okay, Russia is not an average European sized country where all you have to do is, beat the army and the whole country is, at your mercy. No, Russia is too big. And honestly, it blows my mind how Napoleon didn't realize that. Seriously, because all the times that Napoleon beat Russia, that was because, Russia wasn't in Russia. Russia was in Central Europe, because Russia is a part of Europe, but Central Europe mostly, with Prussia, Austria, mostly. So when Russia's beaten, then yeah, sure, they'll be beaten, because their allies are gone, so you might as well just sue for peace. But Napoleon took the war to Russia. Okay, so the war wasn't fighting in those Central European countries anymore. The war was in Russia itself, and Russia's massive, extremely massive. I don't think people realize how big Russia is. Not even I realize how big Russia is. To give you an idea of how massive Russia truly is, it stretches from North Africa all the way to South Africa. That is roughly the size of Russia. So that's really massive. Okay, so
these blunders cost his empire around 500,000 men.
Oh my god. 500,000 men? That is so massive for a time period like this.
as well as 250,000 horses and 1,000 cannon. Put another way, of every 12 men who marched into Russia with the Grande Armée and 1,000 cannon. Put another way, of every 12 men who marched into Russia with the Grande Armée, one was killed in action or died of wounds. 2 were taken prisoner, one of whom died in captivity. 7 died from disease or the effects of climate.
Oh my lord.
Just 2 returned alive.
Oh my lord.
Contrary to myth, many more soldiers had died in the summer advance from heat, typhus and dysentery.
I actually said this in my previous reaction. It wasn't really the winter that really and truly, I mean, the winter was a nail in the coffin for Napoleon's army, but the summer was like what horrible. The Russian summer is funny how nobody talks about that. The Russian summer is a monster in on itself. So
then were lost in the winter retreat. Russian military casualties were estimated at 150,000, and a huge but unknown number of civilian deaths.
So Russia took a big
Russian
loss
campaign
themselves.
was a catastrophe for Napoleon. Not just in lost troops and resources, but in damage to prestige and reputation. That winter, all his enemies sensed weakness and prepared to join forces against him. But the Emperor wasn't going down without a fight.
Oh no!
Back in Paris, he admitted to his ministers, "Fortune has dazzled me, gentlemen. I've let it lead me astray. Instead of following my plan, I went to Moscow. I thought I'd make peace there. I stayed too long. I've made a grave mistake, but I'll have the means to repair it." Thank you.
So even Napoleon himself basically admitted that, hey guys, I bit more that I could chew. Yo, that was wonderful video by Epic Intro TV. If you made it all the way till the end, make sure that you subscribe. You know, if you like my reaction, subscribe. You know, you took like almost an hour to watch my reaction. All right, if you're new, you know, drop a subscription, man. Check out my other reactions on my channel if you are also new. I have many wonderful Napoleonic Wars reaction. I have many wonderful reactions. All my reactions are wonderful. Okay. Unlike most people, I actually give thoughtful reactions, okay? Like, I don't just sit there and watch your screen, okay? And many of my returning viewers and subscribers, they can attest to what I'm saying. So make sure you drop a like on the video so that my channel can stay on the YouTube algorithm and I don't get shadow banned, because I was shadow banned for 4 months. That was awful. Yeah, man. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching and goodbye.